cleaning up your nasopharynx, and whatever little sinusitis we have, it goes away once you stay in UV for about 2 minutes or so. I intentionally stay when I have common cold in UV, wearing the UV goggles, and it cures me so quickly.
Can't we call HSV, I mean, viral herpetic keratitis with the UV exposure?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to speak in vivo. UV use in vivo, and
then forget about all antiviral, antibacterial.
Yes. If the virus is on surface, it can be UV radiated, and that's what I have done. And from that, what I found was something phenomenal, for which I think we should now proceed to the next section of using UV in vivo.
A quick comment from Dr. Ramesha. Yes, sir. How toxic in any dose is the ozone? Hello?
No. Ozone. Sir, ozone is a very temporary phenomena, because the oxygen molecule, oxygen molecule having 1 minus valency in its outer orbit, having 7 electrons, which is needing 8th electron, it is as oxidating as a halogen. So that ozone will fetch electron from anywhere, from wood or from your wall or from your cloth or anywhere, and it will become saturated and become oxygen again. So that's a very temporary phenomena. So I don't think ozone is anyway toxic.
Ozone is not very toxic.
No,
right,
not
sir?
very toxic.
Sir, can we move on to the next section, sir? Please share your.
Yes, please.
We are already 8:25 now.
Yeah, let it be 8:29. We may cut the other part in that case. Should I say? Okay. Because this is something, what I'm now going to show is something which can completely change the scenario, the way we are fighting against the COVID. So this is about use of UV in vivo. And as I said, Latin viva means life. So for those who are not from the medical field, in vitro, vitreous means glass. So in vitro is the experiments in glass, test tube level or petri dish level, and in vivo means experiments which are done in the life. So now we'll be talking a little bit about, not a little bit, but at length about UV. And I would like to congratulate here Dr. Ramesh Shah and introduce him a little bit, although introduced by Dr. Mukesh, that is a high volume cataract and LASIK expert in Bombay, who has done highest multifocal IOL use, and he is an IOL engineer by himself, great idea buzz, and an innovator and great stock market. He can actually, pull or push the stock market. He has so much of big portfolio, and a very popular lecturer on the stock market. And I would recommend, if in my capacity, I would recommend Dr. Ramesh Shah for some future Nobel Prize for medicine and physics, or at least Padma Vibhushan for him, because now what I'm going to describe is originally the idea of Dr. Ramesh Shah, and since we were in the lockdown, we were apart, we were discussing, he was giving me the ideas and I had the components here, so I was assembling the things which were necessary.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kakadia.
My pleasure, sir. You really deserve, your idea really deserves the Nobel Prize for absolute surety. There is no doubt about it. And here is my wife, Dr. Ela, and my sister, Dr. Nipa, who both have helped me a lot to improvise and to really put together the idea which Dr. Ramesh Shah had conveyed me on telephone every day. So, before that, I'll talk a little bit about OmniGlow. That was my one invention, which is a stereocoaxial red reflex device which enhances the visibility of any surgical microscope so well, and the microscope which is having this much of visibility, this good visibility, is costing around 45 lakhs rupees, and we made a small device which can convert your current microscope into that Lumira kind of microscope at a cost of around 2.65 lakh rupees. So you save almost 42 lakhs of rupees and have the same result. After making that OmniGlow, we were just experimenting of converting OmniGlow into UV glow by replacing the visible light into a UV light, so that with that machine we can treat the condition known as keratoconus. So we made our own keratoconus treatment device. Now keratoconus treatment device commercially available costs around 14 to 15 lakhs of rupees, and this device costs 1/10 of it, around 1.4 lakh rupees. So for this we were playing with the UV. We had brought so many different kind of ultraviolet sources from China and Japan that everything was lying in my workshop. And again, when we were doing this experimentation with the UV, we realized that the new nodes, the Gandhi nodes, are fluorescent. So when you put it in UV, it completely changes its shape and color. And then during that experimentation, we also realized that moxifloxacin is also fluorescent. And this drop, when there is no UV on it, looks like water. But when we shine UV torch on this, it appears as green as this. And then we realized that moxifloxacin, gatifloxacin, levofloxacin, and amphotericin B, all these molecules they fluoresce. And for those who are not from ophthalmology, I would just like to remind them that they might have forgotten what is fluorescence. So fluorescence is absorption of invisible light by a material and emission of the visible light by that material. So then on literature search, we realized that all the fluoroquinolones like ciprofloxacin, levo, and moxifloxacin are already having fluorine. So basically, these are fluorinated quinolones. So anything which is fluorinated has to fluoresce, because name itself is fluorescence. So then with this, our new UV torch which we had made, we realized that moxicip eye drops can be used as corneal staining. We don't need fluorescent sodium to do staining. And then with enough number of drops, you can, with that UV light, examine whether the patient has really put the eye drops or not. Because if the corneal stroma is fluorescing, that means the patient has put the drops. If the aqueous humor is fluorescing, that means the patient has religiously put the drops. And sometimes under very dark illumination, you can even see the aqueous vein and the drainage plexus also in the with this. Now another use is that when the crystalline lens protein undergoes an oxidative change, it becomes from crystalline to tryptophan and beta carbolin, and these two things are fluorescent. So if the patient has, suppose, let us say, black cataract, the patient is not ready to believe you that patient has a cataract. You say there is a cataract, but he says no. Then you shine UV torch and the cataract immediately fluoresces. So you can show it to the relatives that, look, your relative, Dada has a cataract. And here you can see that this patient has a PSC cataract. Patient is not ready to believe that I have cataract. And then you show it like this, and patient is agreed. And we can also test the photochromatic glasses when the patient comes back to show you the glasses by shining a UV torch. It instantly turns black like this. And we can also test the UV blocking. As soon as the UV blocking glass comes in the path, it does not allow the UV rays, so the fluorescence will be gone. Let us see it once again. This is moxifloxacin drop, which loses fluorescence when UV blocking glass comes in the path. So then from this we made a device which is known as UV glow. So you hang this on to your microscope's eyepieces, and overnight this keeps on sending small doses of UV light, so that your entire microscope optic path remains fungus free forever. And then we also realized that using moxifloxacin and a little bit modification in your fundus camera, you can do fluorescein angiography also without using sodium fluorescein with moxifloxacin. And suppose if you are confused sometimes which syringe of this is containing moxifloxacin diluted and which is plain BSS, you just shine the torch and you immediately realize that this is moxi and this is plain BSS. And you can even see when you inject the moxifloxacin into the anterior chamber how much you are injecting. It's so beautifully visible because it is fluorescent. And you can even check how long the moxifloxacin which you have given in the morning intracameral has stayed. And we measured that it stays up to 12 hours. In some patients, it stays up to 18 hours in the anterior chamber. So even this surgery was done in the morning, we can see it in the evening. And this is another interesting use of this UV, that when a patient comes to you with a complaint of epiphora on one side, you put the moxifloxacin eye drops and ask the patient to wait. And then after half an hour, if you examine the patient with UV torch, you realize that this NLD was patent, so the drug has come into the nose, and this NLD was blocked, so the drug is still retained here. So this is a good demonstration for the parents and relieve their anxiety what is in that child's eye. And then came the corona, and we had free time to brainstorm how to kill corona. So Dr. R.C. Shah and me were always thinking how to kill corona, how to kill corona. And by the God's grace and by Swami's Antaspurna, we came across several papers which describes that repetitive irradiation with 222 nanometer UVC is non-carcinogenic, safe for sterilizing the human skin. You can go to this reference. There are a number of references about this. And this is another paper which demonstrates that far UVC light is a very good tool to control the spread of airborne and mediated microbial disease. And this report from David Welch and his group clearly demonstrated something very, very interesting. I'll show you that they made a chamber in which they could aerosolize the COVID SARS-CoV-2 viruses as an aerosol by a special pump. And this is the cell line of human epithelial cell taken from the throat mucosa, which are cultured. And these viruses are passing as an aerosol, and this UV light is being exposed to the virus as well as being exposed to this cell line. And the output is taken, so these viruses are taken onto a HEPA filter. And then what they did was that how many viruses injected from here, how many viruses come on your HEPA filter, how many would die due to this UV light. That was one experiment they did. And the second experiment afterwards, what they did was that these cell line, which was now infected because of this virus, and they inoculated this cell line for 6 to 7 days like the normal COVID patient. So when this cell line was then taken under the microscope, this was the real device. This is the schematic device, and this is their real device. So when they examined the infected cell line, these are the cells which are all green because this virus has a fluorescence. The COVID SARS-2 is a fluorescent virus. So when it has multiplied into millions in these cells would fluoresce in a special stain, in fluorescent stain. So these cells, as you can see, are swollen up, are containing a lot of virus load, and it's almost that 80–85% of the cells have become infected. Now, this is irradiation of 0 millijoule for 1 minute. There is no effect. Now, this is the irradiation of 0.8 millijoule on this figure, 0.8 millijoule per centimeter square for 1 minute. At 0.8 millijoule per centimeter square dose, in a minute, the viruses are dead inside the cell come back to their normal size, and almost, I would say 60% of the virus load is gone, almost like 50 to 60%. And then when you radiate the similar infection with 1.3 millijoule per centimeter square, the viruses would die by about 70%. So there's almost like 30% recovery. And when you radiate with 2 millijoule 1 minute, 99% of the viruses are cleared. And then you radiate this cell again after an interval of 12 hours with the same dose, 2 minutes for 2 millijoules for 1 minute, and you get the infection cleared completely. So, taking an idea from that study, me and RC, we designed a machine which is known as Coronash UV, which is a very special UV, which is emitting 222 nanometer. This is basically a 254 nanometer tube. And there is a filter which is placed in front of it, so it allows only 222 nanometer to come out. We get only 20% yield of the total energy, but we don't need so much. So even that 20% output is enough for us at 222. And then I came across a LED which would emit directly 222 nanometer, and I found that I had that in my UV things stock. So we made a sort of a torch with a focusing lens here, and we named it Go Corona Go UV 222 nanometer. So when we were just playing with this and made this preparation, and then I did experimentation on myself, and RC also did on his own mucosa. Is there any real side effect? Nothing happens. We found that nothing really happened. So then my staff's 3 persons had common cold, which is also which is also a disease caused by another type of coronavirus. So we irradiated these patients for 3 minutes, and to our surprise, instead of taking 8 days course, they cleared all their symptoms in 8 hours. So that gave us a little courage that this 222 is really working on corona. And then we tried on corneal ulcers, hypovine corneal ulcers, as well as on herpes simplex. And we started getting good results even in this short period of time. And then I heard President Donald Trump's this briefing, which we all must hear. This was on 23rd April 2020 at White House briefing. Just listen.
It's not audible because you have using your speakerphone. That's why it's not audible.
Okay.
We know about it. Most of the people know what he spoke.
No, okay, right. Okay, fine.
What he intended that you put a...
Yes. So what? Okay, then I'll skip. So what I'll summarize that what he mentioned that UV is the way to go, and I request my scientists to find out the ways how you can do treatment of UV straight up to the lungs. So several universities in USA, they started thinking of the ways on 23rd April onwards, and I was sitting at home. Reading William Shakespeare because it was his birthday and also his death day, which is so celebrated by the UNESCO as World Book Day. And I was reading this Romeo and Juliet, and I read that everything is fair in love and war. So I thought, and Ramesh also thought, that if President Trump is so much convinced, then why should we also not be convinced? And then there was lucky chance. A close friend's family, 4 members turned out to be COVID positive. And in his city's civil hospital, there is no full-time ophthalmologist where they were quarantined. So as a close friend, he wanted me to come and see his eyes because he was having some symptoms of foreign body, and I was thinking that probably he had herpes simplex because of COVID. So I went for a private consultant eye checkup in that small government hospital in a town place, and studied his conjunctival and corneal manifestations of COVID-19. And while examining eyes with various types of torches and fundoscopes, etc., accidentally our UVC 222 light went into his nose and his throat. And then, to our happy surprise, his RT-PCR came negative the next day. While other 3 members of his family still remained positive. And his second RT-PCR test on the second day also came negative, so he was being discharged. So he called me that I'm now taking leave, but my kids and my wife are still in the hospital. So can you come back and have the eye checkup of my remaining three family members once again? So next day, again I went there and I examined the eyes of these three family members. And to our surprise, all the three, those three patients, RT-PCR again came negative on the next day and then on the next day. So the entire family got relieved. And this guy was a very philanthropic guy. So when he was in the COVID ward for almost 14 days, there were 37 patients there to whom this guy had given a gift, a kettle for taking the NAS, taking the steam inhalation. So when he was being discharged, all these patients gathered and they were waving, and then they asked कि भाई आप हमारी भी आँख चेक करने के लिए डॉक्टर काकड़िया को बुला सकते हो कि ये जब आँख चेक करते हैं तो कोविड नेगेटिव हो जाता है. So then he requested me, कि, can you come? So again, on his request and on the request of those patients, I went back and examined the eyes of all these patients, and somehow all those patients came RT-PCR negative second day and third day. So we found or we felt that this UVC 222 light shining on the nose and accidentally shining in the, while shining on the eyes, accidentally shining in the nose, was able to destroy the virus in situ. And in this World War III against corona, there is no time for evidence-based medicine. Even PM says that take Ayurvedic kada, take arsenic album, take all the non-evidence-based medicines are also being prescribed. So we thought, let us inform him. Because I felt that somehow I had that gun which the James Bond had. He had Smith and Wesson. I had my UV-22. So we informed the Prime Minister that somehow this is what is happening. That when we shine this 222 torch for examination of the eyes, accidentally something happens and the COVID viruses are dying, and the patients are becoming free from the symptoms, and they are becoming negative on 2 successive tests. So the matter is taken up by Prime Minister Office, and this has been urgently given to the ICMR with an express instruction to take it up urgently, being monitored by Syed Ali Shamim Andrabai, who is the chairman of the Indian Institute of Science, whom he has appointed to look after this matter. And we also contacted the White House. We wrote this letter and these findings to President Trump. And we also sent the same report to World Health Organization, and we also sent the same to the United Nations. And here I am joining my hands and requesting any of the government officers concerning the COVID-19, or any of the ministers of any state, health or chief minister or whoever is concerned, if they wish us to help them in their fight with corona, if they give us a chance to come with proper permission, we can come with our device, and you give us 20 or 30 or 40, 50, how many number of patients you wish to. Those who have come positive today, we examine their eyes with our this little torch, and then you do the PCR in the evening. If that comes in negative, then you do the PCR again on the next day evening. And if that comes negative, then this gets proven that this wavelength is working in vivo. So we are just now waiting for the node from the Indian Council of Medical Research to take this into a further research. And if any of the institutes, any of the medical colleges, any of the department wants to take this up as a project or as a research, we have no financial interest in this, and we are ready to share the technology, we are ready to share the equipment to any of the superintendent or any of the dean of any of the medical college. And we also have a thought process in our mind that for disease which are going deep into the lung, we can have a fiber optic UV which can be 3D brought into the deep respiratory tract by using a 3D printed disposable laryngoscope or a UV bronchoscope. And even a patient with severe viremia can be treated theoretically, because in a dialysis unit, in any dialysis unit, there are two locations which are UV transparent. And if we radiate these two locations and put this patient, even the normal patient, on the dialysis, their blood viremia also will be reduced to almost zero or by 99%. And the Sunshine State in USA, which is Florida, there are some doctors who have been doing this for some other purpose. It's known as alternative therapy doctors in USA. They detoxify the blood with UV rays by putting a catheter, UV catheter, into the vein, so that the entire blood in about 10 to 15 minutes passes from this point in the circulation and gets disinfected and detoxified. So this fiber optic cable gets attached to the UV source on the other end. So even this kind of device like this UV catheter being injected into the vein, and blood viremia can be controlled. So that is also something which is doable, which we have been thinking of at the moment. And before I conclude, here is my wife, who has given me an express instruction that as soon as the lockdown opens, you go to Japan and bring the 222 LEDs in number, and make a device, something like this, which is very small, like a keychain, and having 3 LEDs which are enough to radiate, and everybody can radiate their own corona as soon as they start having some symptom. And not only COVID corona, but any kind of respiratory infection, any kind of respiratory viral infection, you take this and you get cured within 8 hours. You don't need to spend or waste your 7 or 8 days time. And then I also thought of basking whatever little UVB and UVC are being leaked, especially on the beaches, on the seashore surface. You do have a little amount of UVC and a sizable amount of UVB. So if you take a lens from a photographic camera, which is specially made for UV photography, which are transparent to UV very, very highly, and you take it up, and that focal length you push it into the nose, and then this becomes a natural therapy. So this is another thing on which we are working. Sun basking by using ultraviolet focusing optics of the ultraviolet camera. So with that, I'm pretty sure with all my these experiences and Dr. R.C. Shah's experiences, that we have found a Brahmastra in the form of a wavelength UV222, which can kill the corona, and nothing else can kill the corona till the time that we develop vaccine, or till the time that we have medicine. And the medicine which recently is being talked about, remdesivir, has a cure rate of only 8%. Only 8% of those who are seriously affected having blood viremia gets cured by remdesivir. And you know the cost of remdesivir. One injection costs $4,400 US, and you have to give at least 6 days BID. That means the total cost of remdesivir therapy would go somewhere around 22 lakhs of rupees. Versus that, UV222 therapy would cost nothing, because that UV222 source would not be more than 3,000 to 4,000 rupees, and it can be used for as many times as you want. It's practically free. So with that, I thank everybody for listening me patiently about the UV, especially the UV in vivo. And I'm pretty sure that there'll be many questions for this UV2, which is a breakthrough innovation. I'll stop sharing my slide here and hand it over to Dr. Mukesh Porwal for questions.